Sahana Bhavatu, Sahano Bhunaktu, Sahaviryang Karavavahe, Tejasvina Vadhitamastu, Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaita Amrita Varshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadasha Atyayinim Ambatwama Sunandadhami Bhagavadgita Bhavadveshinim. O Mother, Bhagavad Gita, I repeatedly meditate on you, who are the 18 chapters in the middle of the Mahabharata, composed by the ancient sage Vyasa, taught for the benefit of Partha, that is Arjuna, by the Lord Narayana himself, the goddess, the shower of the nectar of Advaita, the enemy of rebirth, the one who removes ignorance. Okay, in chapter 10, Krishna showed a sample of his divine glories throughout the cosmos, and he presented them to Arjuna in a sequential fashion. That means he showed one form, and then Arjuna got to appreciate it, and he got really impressed by what he saw, and then Arjuna requested another form. And then Krishna showed another form. So this means that Arjuna first got to know the glory of individual vibhutis, glories of the cosmos, before he went on to chapter 11. And then in chapter 11, the chapter we're on now, Arjuna calls Krishna Kamala Patraksha. That means the one whose eyes are like lotus, or a petal of a lotus. And what is a petal of a lotus like? Do you know? The one whose eyes are like a petal of a lotus. Now just imagine a petal of a lotus flower.
Soft.
Ah, soft.
White.
Yeah, okay, why? It means it's pure. Excellent. So it is soft and clear. It is soft and pure. In other words, Krishna is being called that one who is clear in reality, in the knowledge of everything that is, in the knowledge of reality. And also it means the one who saves from samsara, because I cannot know myself unless I'm told. And Krishna is thus the one who tells me about my true nature. And then then Arjuna requests to witness the entire cosmic form, now that he's called Krishna, the one who saves me from samsara, the one who stops the cycle of rebirth. Show me your entire cosmic form, Krishna. And when I say cosmic form, we discussed, it means three words, they're all synonymous: Vishvarupa, Jagat, and Virat. This means the total body of all that is, including time and space. So when I say cosmic form or Jagat throughout this session, what I'm really saying is time, space, and everything included in time and space. So in Vedanta, if someone asks you the word or a question, what is Jagat? What is the universe? How would you answer that?
Time and space and everything in it.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just asking to relay that back. You don't have to be creative and go, okay, you said that, Andre, now why should I say it back? But just by participation, that's the whole point. It actually engages the mind, engages your mind. Okay. And he wants to see this entire Jagat, which you now know what it means because someone has said it very clearly, called Adrian. He wants to see that all at once. This means this is not a matter of consecutive order. He wants to see it all in one single shot, like show me everything, including time, space, and all objects within that. Now, of course, the matter of show me everything, including time, then who am I, the one who's witnessing everything? That we will discuss soon enough. However, if you brought this question up, that's good, because this is how your mind should be thinking. The whole point of Vedanta is to be constantly inquiring upon every statement. So no statement slips and you just let it kind of slide. Also, Arjuna has demonstrated two qualities of an excellent student. So if you want to be an excellent student, then this is how Arjuna has demonstrated. First, Arjuna said in chapter 10, or more like he realized in chapter 10, that before I meaning Arjuna, before I grasp the entire reality, the entire whole, I first need to understand individual parts of the whole. Think about that. Before you understand the car, can you just like understand the car in one go, in one big shot? No. You need to what? Understand different components of the car. Or something more relatable like cooking. If someone gives me a cake, now how am I going to make this cake? I need to first master the ingredients of each, and then actually know how many grams or how long should I cook. And then when I understand the ingredients, then I can put it all together. So first step in being a good student, you first ask, what are the individual parts that I need to understand? If I don't understand them, then I need to address that specific part. This is how most of us read books. We read the book in one whole big go. Instead, a more effective way to read a book is to first ask, what exactly, per the subject matter that I'm about to read, what exactly do I not understand? And then go specifically to that chapter and master that topic. And then say, having now mastered this topic, what kind of questions do I have now, having read this? In other words, you're the one who leads the reading process instead of subscribing to the book and just going with the book. You're the one who composes the questions, and then the book simply serves to answer those questions. Therefore, Arjuna first asked, what is it that I do not understand about the whole? Then he was presented with individual vibhutis in chapter 10 so that he may understand the whole at least a little bit more. First quality of an excellent student. After having understood individual parts, then comes chapter 11. And what is this chapter? Now that I've understood individual parts, I can now request Krishna, show me or let me hear how all of these parts that you have shown me, all of these vibhutis make up the whole simultaneously in one big synergy. What is synergy? The component of many parts make up the whole. So in order to prevent overwhelm, we all have overwhelm once in a while, right? Now, how do you prevent overwhelm? How do you actually get out of overwhelm? What is overwhelm? You tell me about anything in life.
Confusion.
Okay, expand on that. Like an example.
Too much information to process through the intellect.
Okay, good answer. It can be about anything, right? This overwhelm. It can be about you lost something that's important to you and then you don't know how to handle it because it's so unexpected. I've never thought about it before. So then it's just like comes out of nowhere. However, what about in terms of information? Like, what about if I don't understand something? Why do we have this overwhelm? Robert, you wanted to say something? You wanted to add?
I was going to say that overwhelm is actually an emotional reaction to not being able to process the information that's in front of you.
Good. Emotional reaction to unprocessed information. I'm glad you said that because I was going to head that way. So in terms of unprocessed information, what do I need to do? Do I need to just go, okay, I feel, let me just like abide in this feeling of stuckness. If I do that, I'm not going to move anywhere. So what do? What exactly is holding me back? And then I break it down into components and I look at those components. And then once, as I said, once I understand, then I move on. So this is exactly what Arjuna has done. First, show me the individual components. Let me understand them well. Let me grasp them. Let me master them. When I feel certain, confident, firm, after I firmly grasp the knowledge, then I can now put it all together. So this is how the teaching takes place. This is very important. The second way Arjuna has demonstrated that he is an excellent student is he explicitly states in chapter 11, verse 2, what he has understood in chapter 7. Chapter 7 is that teaching of para apara prakriti, if you remember, the total. And this is actually an important aspect, because usually what do? We just listen and we go, okay, thank you, move on. But what does Arjuna do? Before you speak, Krishna, let me first paraphrase what I have learned, so that you may verify if what I have understood by the way that I say it is actually making sense to you, the one who knows. Because when I actually say it, then I recognize whether I've understood it or not. But not only that, but the mere fact of you listening to me, you can make some corrections, so that when I do move on, I'm not moving on with a wrong notion. Otherwise, whatever you say is going to be put on top of that wrong notion. Therefore, the continued teaching is not going to take place. Or it will, but in a fashion that I'm not going to grasp the reality. So this means, chapter 7, he said in verse 2, Bhava apyayao hi bhutanam shrutao vistarasha maya. In other words, Bhava apyayaha, he's referring to, I have understood creation and dissolution. I've understood the process of how this world comes about, Pancha Mahabhutas, through the 3 gunas, and I've understood pralayam, the mass dissolution. We've discussed all this in chapter 7 and chapter 9. He then also says bhutanam, of many things. So Arjuna says, I've understood the reality of many things. And what is this reality? Bhutanam. In other words, the pancha bhuta, the 5 elements. In other words, this entire world comes from the 5 elements: space, air, fire, water, earth. That's the Vedic model. You can also use the scientific model. You can say the periodic table of elements. So it doesn't really matter. In other words, the point is, Arjuna explicitly states, assertively, he doesn't say, I hope Krishna asks me a question. He says, stop. Let me paraphrase if I've understood what you have told me. He takes the action, the lead. That's a mark of a good student. He also states that I've understood chapter 8. Remember chapter 8? All about how to die, death. It's all about dying in chapter 8. When to die, how to die, why to die. I don't think we talked about why to die. We just talked about dying. So again, Arjuna here explicitly states, I've understood even the process of dying. Chapter 11, verse 3, we discussed last week. Arjuna then makes a request after explicitly stating what he has learned. Now, let me see the entire universe of beings, of events, and of all things interconnecting, working together, happening at once in one single time. Not that we can say time because time is included, but in one single go. Let me see it all. Then 11.8, verse 8, Arjuna then was given Divya Chakshuhu, divine vision. We remember this by Lord Krishna. Now, what is this Divya Chakshuhu? I'll just give you some context so you can relate. Imagine being given a microscope. You're going to see something other than what you see. Now, careful here. Often now in chapter 11, our minds tends to go into a wild imagination mode. When I say, if I give you a microscope, it's not like you're going to see something new. You're still going to recognize basic laws and orders of reality, like movement, like splitting, coming together, shapes, circles, ellipse. So it's not like you're going to go, well, I've never seen an ellipse before. I've never seen 2 cells coming together. So in other words, even though you're going to see something, it's not like you're going to see something new. You're just going to get a different, a deeper reality about what is already true right now. So that's what Divya Chakshuhu is, one example. Another is, suppose you go to a movie like Avatar. You've been to Avatar or some 3D movie? You know when they give you those special glasses? So the movie without the glasses is fine, right? You can still watch it and enjoy it. But it's only when you're given these glasses, it's not like now I put on these glasses and I'm seeing something new. I'm seeing exactly the same as an ordinary movie, except there's an extra dimension onto what is already true. So Divya Chakshuhu can also be looked at like that. The reason I'm stating this is so that the mind doesn't go wild as I'm about to expound the following verses of what Arjuna is saying. So just look at chapter 11 as what I am seeing is already there, but only to my, what we call mala, my impurities of the mind, I'm unable to see more than what I'm seeing right now. Another example is of this Divya Chakshuhu. Imagine watching a movie on your mobile phone, and then you watch the same movie on an IMAX. It's not like the movie is different, but there is a difference in experience, isn't there? It's much vaster, it's much more immersive, much more kind of like there's a new dimension to it. So these are some of the examples of what it means to be given a Divya Chakshuhu. What is this Divya Chakshuhu? Purity of the mind. It is not some special place where Arjuna is now in some different world, looking at the universe from top above and going, okay, I'm in a different place. This is all Advaita thinking, trying to get out of earth and using chapter 11 as an escape from living right here, right now. Okay, so what was going to bring you back down to earth? That's the whole Bhagavad Gita is about. Living here as a normal human being, just recognizing a greater depth to reality that is already present right now. Now, before Arjuna speaks, first, let's see what Sanjaya has to say, because Sanjaya is in verse 9. Who's Sanjaya? He's a confidant of King Dhritarashtra. A confidant just means a close associate or his charioteer. And Sanjaya will speak between verse 9 to 13. So get verse 9 ready. Sanjaya uvacha evam uktva tato rajan mahayogeshwaro harihi darshayamasa parthaya paramam rupam aishwaram.
Having spoken thus, O king, then the limitless Lord of all yogis, whose grace destroys all papa, showed to Arjuna his wondrous all-inclusive form.
And would someone like to read the bottom part?
When Arjuna said, O king, then the Lord showed Arjuna his cosmic form, says Sanjaya. Sanjaya refers to Krishna here as the Lord of all yogis, Yogesvara, who is also limitless, Mahan, and who is called Hari because his grace destroys all papa. The form he showed to Arjuna was one that includes all forms. That was Parama. Any given form generally excludes every other form, but here it is one form containing all forms, each of which still enjoys its own form. That is the beauty. If all wax forms are rolled into one form, the individual forms are lost. But here, in one sweep of vision, you can see one form consisting of all forms. This cosmic form, Bhagavan, showed to Arjuna. Then Sanjaya, who also could see that cosmic form, continues with his own description of the whole thing.
Sanjaya named Krishna here Yogi of all yogis. So whatever power a yogi has, nothing excels the one from whom all individual powers come. So next time you see a yogi who wants to impress you, show you some siddhis, a book comes up, let me show you some siddhi powers. You can say or understand, no matter what you show me, that power resolves into Ishvara. We don't waste time chasing powers. Why? Because he is the yogi of all yogis. Therefore, my attention goes on that one, not on individual yogis with individual limited powers. Harihi evam uktva. Harihi indicates Lord Krishna being none other than Lord Vishnu, because Harihi is also associated to Lord Vishnu. Who is Lord Vishnu? Vishvarupa of Ishvara. Who is Lord Vishnu? When Ishvara plays the role from the standpoint of the sustainer of the universe. That is Vishnu. Harihi also means the one who absorbs or withdraws all impurities or papam. From whom? From you. How? By aligning with the laws and orders of the universe. then he is the one who withdraws those impurities and absorbs them. Which does what? It prevents the bhakta's mind from recognizing divinity in all forms. So as long as there's impurity in my mind, I'm unable to recognize divinity in this world. Then what am I going to call the world? Just the world, with all sorts of opinions. Why? Because there's impurities in this mind. Filters, raga, dvesha, likes and dislikes. Because of those filters, I'm unable to see that this world is much more than just the world. Now, what type of Lord is he? This Harihi? Maha Yogeshwaraha. That is the one who has powers of purification. In other words, whereby otherwise I would take years to purify through karma yoga and upasana. He's the one who in one snap takes it all these impurities away. That's what is done to Arjuna, at least temporarily. And through these powers, what happened to Arjuna's antahkarana means the mind. It temporarily removed mala, impurities. Now, why is this? What's the symbolism of this? Why is he doing this? Let's just not talk about he removed this. Okay, great, thank you. But what's the symbolism behind this? It is that if you remove impurities, at least temporarily, then I'm able to get inspired. And that inspiration is enough to help me to pursue the path further. That means the bhakta, who gains that at least a momentary taste. It's kind of like walking into a dark room and you see nothing. And then I turn on the light and then you see beauty in the room. And then I turn off the light. Now, it doesn't matter if I turn off the light because at least there's an impression that there is an existence of beauty, of divinity in this world. Even if it's temporary, it doesn't matter. It is still enough to compel me to then go back and then to pursue a way to purify this mind so that it is as though the light is consistently turned on. Then, paramam rupam aishwaram. So, Ishwara's Vishvarupa, when I say Ishwara is Vishvarupa, I'm talking about Ishwara's total body, including time, space, and all objects, is both Paramam and Aishwaram, is both greatest and Aishwaram, all pervading. So this means that all Rupa is finite, other than that which is Paramam and Aishwaram, which is greatest and all pervading. Rama Rupa, limited. Krishna Rupa, limited. Ganesha Rupa, limited. Vishnu Rupa, limited. Jesus Rupa, limited. Why? Because to think of Rama, what have I just done? I've displaced Krishna in my mind. To think of Krishna, I've displaced Rama. To think of Jesus, I've displaced all the others. In other words, in the traditional form, when I think of X, Y has to go away. When I think of Y, X has to go away. Therefore, both X and Y are subject to arrival and departure. Whereas Paramam, that which is greatest and all-pervading, that means it is never not true, only to my understanding that all that is here is one without a second. Whether I think it or not, it is always true. Therefore, I do not pursue individual forms because they are here and now. All knowledge, all power. Remember, everything resolves into that. And in the Vedic tradition, by the way, what do we teach our children while they're young? We teach them namaskara in how many directions?
Yeah, 8.
Yeah, 8, okay. Now, why do we do that? What's the symbolism of this in our Vedic tradition? Why do we tell our child, do namaskara in 8 directions? Go back to Paramam, greatest, and Aishwaram, all pervading. Again, why do we tell them to face all directions, do namaskara? Yes, Robert.
Is it because the original division of Bhagavad Gita was divided into 8 from the 1?
Okay, that's a different way of looking at it. You're going back to the number 8 now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, in all 8 directions. It means so north, northeast, east, right? So all directions. In other words, Lord is all pervasive. There's no place where he is not. Atra tatra cha sarvatra vartate parameshwaraha.
But Andre, traditionally they talk about the 6 directions of space being the 4 points and up and down. In 3-dimensional space, there are 6 directions, not 8.
I think that's the Buddhist thing, the up and down thing as well.
Yeah, you can now get into, X, Y, Z is access, and then you can go into, the 7 dimensions that scientists report, and then you can make one big thing out of it. Okay, so verse 10 and 11 now. Aneka vaktra nayanam, aneka adbhuta darshanam, aneka divya bharanam, divyaneko dyatha yudham, divya malyam baradharam, divya gandhanulepanam, sarvashcharyamayam devam, anantam vishvato mukham.
That form consisted of countless mouths and eyes, countless wondrous objects, countless celestial ornaments, and countless extraordinary weapons in a raised state for use. Wearing celestial garlands and garments anointed with special sandal paste, it was all wonder, effulgent, was endless, and was one that spanned all the directions.
Sanjaya is also getting the same Vishvarupa Darshanam through his description. So this is all Sanjaya now talking, what Adrian just read. And one of the descriptions is Vishvato Mukham Aneka Vaktra Nayanam. So here we go. So Lord faces in all directions with many mouths and eyes. Think about this. What comes to mind now? A Lord facing in all directions with many mouths and eyes. What is the mind now going to do? Imagine a Lord with many mouths and eyes, right? And it's just like placed all over him. So this is why we need to clarify. So what does this mean? What is the Lord? The one cause of many. That means the one cause from which many come, from which multiplicity comes, from which your mouth comes, from which my mouth comes, from which your eyes come, from which my eyes come. Therefore, all mouths and eyes of all jivas throughout the universe are none other than Bhagavans. Therefore, he faces in all directions. That means there's no place where he is not, with many mouths and eyes. Then, Aneka Divya Abharanam. So, Parameshwaraha, which is Paramaishwaraha, the highest Lord, is the one with many ornaments. So this means all of the ornaments that we enjoy, that you and I enjoy, like the necklace that you're going, oh, such a nice necklace. Oh, look at my ring. Oh, look at my bracelet. Oh, look at my house. That's another ornament. Look at my 9-volume books. That's another ornament. Look at my knowledge. That's another ornament. Everything's an ornament. Is his.
Andre, when he said countless celestial ornaments, didn't he mean the stars?
No, celestial ornaments. Okay, stars are included because this is poetical, by the way. So not only is it ornaments of world, but also ornaments of the cosmos. All ornaments. So, and also that, I'm also bringing it down to earth. So you're not going now out there in space, celestials, because think about it this way. What relevance is it going to have to you if I start talking about the stars right now? Yeah, so we bring it down to earth. So there's also a method to teaching. So all ornaments are Bhagavans. Therefore, we remind ourselves that I'm only ever borrowing his ornaments. And one day, all of those ornaments I will return back to him, including this ornament, the body. That's another ornament. The very ornament which I'm using to enjoy myself here on earth, that is also his. And claiming power and victory and knowledge, that is also because of him. And one day I will return it because at some point in time, this body was not here on earth. It was born. And whatever is born must go. Therefore, I will have to return this ornament also. So this means you don't own anything here in this world. Even a child, you say my child. Why do we say my child? When the body that made the child is not even mine. So how can I claim it my child? We're not saying now discard your child. We're just saying, think of it in a different, in a much more expansive way. And any accomplishments that I've done, that this body has done, are because of this body. So whatever accomplishments are done are only done because of this body, which is not mine. Therefore, how can I call those accomplishments mine? Because the body is not mine. Therefore, everything is his. Divya aneka udyata ayudham. He wields countless divine weapons. Again, don't imagine now a Lord with 1,000 hands holding a different weapon in each hand. A knife in one hand, a spear in the other, a bazooka in the other, a grenade in the other. It's like, what kind of a Lord is that, right? So then why is it countless weapons? That's a question. If it says countless weapons. Because where is this event taking place? Kurukshetra, right? How many weapons are on Kurukshetra right now? Millions, countless weapons. Each soldier is holding a weapon, and it belongs to what? Vishvarupa Ishvara. It is also one of the vibhutis of Ishvara. Now, how are soldiers' weapons divine? Because it says divine weapons. I said they're divine. How are they divine now? I mean, they're ordinary weapons, right? So there's two ways to look at this. If it's a weapon of a person, it is not divine because it's just a weapon. I'm holding a knife. Okay, knife, nice knife. But if that weapon that I'm holding is understood to be a property of God, automatically its status changes from ordinary weapon, laukika, to Ishwarasya, of Ishwara. Because that weapon is also upadana karanam, material cause, which is just atoms, particles, resolving into upadana karanam. Therefore, it's all about where your focus is. Yes, Robert, please.
So our body belongs to Ishvara, and everything we own belongs to Ishvara. Does our free will belong to Ishvara?
Free will is another law and order of Ishvara, which, yes, so everything is Ishvara's, but also there are some laws like free will, which we can use for moving through this world. Because free will is just another, a subtler law like gravity or electromagnetism or cause and effect or dharma and karma. Yeah, so it's another law that is given for us to specifically use according to our decisions.
Yeah.
Okay, and now what's the difference between, again, between divine and non-divine? Anything?
Just your attitude.
Ah, good. So what's the difference between divine wife and non-divine wife?
A divine wife, you see it as Ishvara. Yeah.
Excellent. In other words, there's an association. What I see, I associate to divinity, to Ishvara, because the one cause from which many come, including my wife. For example, apple is an apple if I buy it in a shop. Is it not? Yeah. What happens when I take that apple to a temple? It becomes what? Prasada.
Prasad. Yeah.
Yeah. In other words, an ordinary apple that you just draw faces on. I don't know what kids do with apples nowadays. That same apple becomes, you have a different relationship with it the moment you take it inside the temple. Same thing as I said last week. What is the Vishvarupa? It is as though this entire universe is inside a temple. Therefore, your attitude, your relationship changes to everything in a subtle way. I'm not saying now, don't stand up for yourself and so on. But there is a underlining a certain maturity about the way you're approaching things. There's more patience, and not so quick to lash out and, you know, to put an opinion about someone and then, or not to understand them. It's a little bit more patient about it. So if we recognize that everything resolves in this one cause, then nothing is secular anymore. What I used to see as secular now becomes sacred. Therefore, nothing really changed. Everything remains the same. It is just about what I understand this world to be. That's the whole point of the Shastra, to change my understanding. And the second reason how the weapons are divine is whenever a weapon is associated to protecting dharma, then that weapon is associated to the Lord. Therefore, it becomes divine. Also, I want to now clear up some confusion before we move on about Vishvarupa Darshanam, just so that the mind doesn't go wild imagining dualistic concepts. In the following verses, generally what Krishna will say is, I am showing Arjuna Vishvarupa. Now, do not think that this implies now that Vishvarupa isn't here now, and only after gaining Divya Chakshuhu, then Vishvarupa or divinity will become true. No. What does Vishvarupa mean? It means by aligning myself, by aligning my understanding with universal orders of this universe. By doing that through my own act, through my own free will, as Robert was pointing out, then through Lord's grace, He alone removes the obstacles preventing the appreciation of the divinity, of Vishvarupa Ishvara. How did that come? How did that appreciation come of divinity? By my actions first, by aligning myself with Dharma. Therefore, it is work on the part of the individual. This means before removal of these impurities, world equals secular. After removing these impurities, the world, that same world, which I used to call world and secular, now becomes sacred. Therefore, Vishvarupa is not a physical event that we're now about to talk about. It's not some event that Arjuna's, having some time in space over there, and we're here just listening, feeling small, and he's over there in some greater reality. And, we're going, wow, I want to reach that. It's got nothing to do with that. Because the whole Vishvarupa Darshanam can be taken as a metaphor. That means chapter 11 is a metaphor. Metaphor of what? As someone said nicely here, it is an attitudinal perspective change about the very world that I live in right now. Attitude change. Attitude change has a perspective change. Perspective change has an attitude change. And that attitude perspective change is fully in your power. Who doesn't have the ability, who doesn't have 24 hours in a day to make some decisions and do things differently than I used to do it yesterday? We all do have time in a room, time to contemplate and think about, what can I do today, or how can I think about the world a little bit differently than I thought about it yesterday? Anantam, another word. So Vishvarupa has no end, says Sanjaya. In other words, the entire material universe is an insignificant speck in Bhagavan's Virat, in Bhagavan's body. This entire universe, the scientists are trying to figure out, that universe itself is a little speck in Bhagavan's total Virat, total Jagat. That's how vast the body of Bhagavan is, limitless. Therefore, Sarva Ashcharam Ayam. For that reason, Vishvarupa Ishvara is a wonder. So what Sanjaya is saying to Dhritarashtra is the one reality consists of endless forms of wonder. And these wonders are like splendid ornaments unimaginable by the human mind, including laws and orders in the form of weapons, or should we say laws and orders, and weapons, these divine weapons, which are wielded for appropriate causes. Now, I've talked about weapons of the soldiers. Now, let's look at the weapons from a different angle. What about tsunamis? That is another weapon, force of nature. What about asteroids? They gave birth to humanity by destroying the dinosaurs. That is another weapon. What about death? That is another weapon because it causes death for one person, giving way for another person to be born. What about digestion? That's another weapon, isn't it? Because it digests, it destroys your food in order to help you grow. What about papa karma? That's another weapon, isn't it? Because if someone gets their way of living unethically without being stopped, that's going to be a disaster for the entire society. In other words, there's no such thing as getting your way eternally. Papa karma is always there, waiting. These are all weapons. And Sanjay is seeing them. Okay, verse 12. Divi suryasya hasrasya bhaved yugapad uttita yadi bhak sadrishi sasyad bhasastasya mahatmanaha.
If 1,000 effulgent suns should simultaneously rise in the sky, that effulgence would be equal to the effulgence of the great Lord.
And please read the underneath description.
Just think of the brightness of a blazing summer sun. Now suppose 1,000 suns rise simultaneously in the sky. How effulgent would it be? Equivalent to that, Sanjaya says, was the effulgence of Ishvara's cosmic form. Keep going.
Yeah, the whole thing.
It was, Shankara says, equivalent to the effulgence of Ishvara's cosmic form. No example will be adequate because he transcends all comparisons. It is impossible to even imagine. That is why he said it is like 1,000 suns simultaneously rising. It does not happen and it is difficult even to imagine it. If you could imagine 1,000 suns rising in the sky, that would be the effulgence of Ishvara in this cosmic form. Here the upama, illustration, is not drawn from any known experience because there is none. So you are asked to imagine. This is known in Sanskrit literature as Sambhavita Upama.
How long does the sunlight take to reach us?
8 minutes.
Yeah. In other words, the sun is distant. 8 minutes. Powerful light to reach us. Is our sun the largest in the universe? No. Even though the sun is distant and it is not the largest, we still cannot withstand looking at the sun directly. Now imagine the brilliance of all suns in the universe put together and looking at them up close like that. That is the effulgence of the Lord. Unimaginable. In fact, the ex-serviceman during the war in the atomic bomb era, it was like 1960s, I believe. I was looking at the documentary and I remember this specifically. One of the ex-servicemen was saying the brightness of that explosion of the atomic bomb is so bright that even if you're wearing goggles and you cover your eyes, it is so bright that I remember this specifically, he said, I saw every single bone in the people around me, even though I had my eyes closed and my goggles were worn. Imagine the brightness of that. I saw every single bone of not only my own hands, but also of those who I was looking at, with my eyes closed and goggles worn on. And what is an atomic bomb? A little speck compared to our sun, let alone all of the suns in the universe put together. Now imagine the brightness, the power, unfathomable. That is the magnitude of the Lord. Tatraikastham jagat kritsnam pravibhaktam anekadha apashya deva devasya sharire pandavastada.
Then there in the body of the Lord of all gods, Pandava, saw the entire world remaining in a single form, but distinctly divided in a manifold way.
And the underneath?
There, in that Vishvarupa, this entire world remaining within the boundaries of one form retained the distinction of each form therein. It was divided in many ways into celestials, devas, humans, manushyas, the manes, etc. Shankara says, included are the animals, yakshas, rakshasas, gandharvas, all in one form. Arjuna saw all this in that particular form, the body of the Lord of all the gods.
So when we say the total body of Ishvara, the total body, and as I said, total body is Virat, Vishvarupa, or Jagat. They're synonymous words. For the sake of grasping, because it's so hard to imagine, what is this total body? You know, because we can only grasp as much as our room or even a country. But if you talk about the total body, which not only includes objects, but also time, space, and objects included, let's make it more graspable. This total body can be taken as infinite space in whom all objects exist. So just think of your room now. Your room has space, and that space accommodates different objects, like the laptop you're looking at now, or the computer, or your phone, right? So all of these objects in this world are accommodated by this space. Now just imagine expanding that space, and it accommodates everything in this universe. So that's one way to grasp this. That means the total body in whom all objects exist. And then you go one step further. What is Virat? What is Jagat? Not only does it's not like space embodying everything, but Virat is that which embodies even space and time itself. Now that's where our mind cannot imagine, but that's why I took you through this consecutive process. You can stop at space embodying all things. For this reason, let's see what Sanjaya says. Kritsnam jagat ekastam apashyat. So Arjuna sees 14 lokas, that means the entire existence, in Ishvara's total body. Now you know what total body is, that I've given you the context. And this universe that we speak of, anekadha pravibhaktam, is divided into infinite forms, each resolving into the next. For example, your house resolves into the suburb resolves into the city resolves into the province resolves into the country resolves into the continent resolves into earth resolves into the solar system resolves into Milky Way resolves into the universe resolves into all knowledge, all power. So many forms, and they all resolve into the one. That means they're not apart from the one. Therefore, all forms retain their unique personality, but they're never separate from the one. For example, look at your thumb. That thumb has a different personality than your index finger, right? Two different personalities. Index finger is kind of like, you know, flirty or something, and the thumb is like strong or, you know, like protective or something. Or you can make up words, whatever you want. Now, those two little personalities, are they apart from the one total body? No. In the same way, every form in this universe, whether you're talking about a bird, a fish, a tiger, a cat, they are of the one total body and never apart from it. Therefore, if I injure you, I am actually also injuring myself. Just like if I injure this thumb, I'm also injuring the pinky at the same time, because they are connected. They're not apart. That's called karma. That's why nothing is apart. That's why I cannot get away from doing adharmic things and then expecting no results, because everything is interconnected to this one total body called Jagat. Tatra deva devasya sharire pandavaha apashyat. There, In the body of the Lord, Arjuna saw. Apashya, that's a past tense. What did Arjuna see? He saw that divinity is always true, because everything is Bhagavan. And what denies me from knowing this divinity is the impure antahkarana, the impure mind. What does this impure mind do? It colors my perceptions of the world. Therefore, life becomes heavy and burdensome. Why does it become heavy and burdensome? Because of my own psychology. I haven't looked into my own emotions. Still thinking about the past. Cannot let go. That means I haven't worked on myself enough. For this reason, Divya Chakshuhu can also be interpreted as Nidithyasanam. What is Nidithyasanam? Even after I gain self-knowledge, which we have done before we started chapter 11, extensively, remember? One still continues reflecting and reorienting their life, their emotional life, their relationships with themselves, with their children, with their family. In other words, the journey doesn't stop. Even after gaining the highest knowledge, that is just the beginning, because the impurities are still there. In fact, 99% of this journey is about addressing my inner psychology, my inner mind. That's the reality of it. So this means that, yes, I do need to address my relative self. I can't now say, oh, it's just all mithya. My relative Andre's self, it's all just, an illusion. And this is not what Advaita says. What Advaita says, it provides you the knowledge. After providing the knowledge, it says, now your real work begins. Now you can address your relative self, but in a proper light, without getting lost into it. Whereas before gaining the knowledge, the relative self becomes all there is. In other words, I spend my entire life just on the relative self, missing out on the foundation, which I should have addressed first. Yes, you see how beautiful the order comes together. Okay. Now, in verse 14 to 29, Arjuna is going to describe his vision. So, end of Sanjaya. Now Arjuna begins. Tatah sa vismaya vishtaha harshtaro madhananjayaha pranamya shirisa devam kritanjalirabhashata.
Then, overwhelmed with awe, with his hair standing on end, Arjuna, saluting the Lord with his head, hands folded together, said.
And a description, please.
Arjuna is actually seeing this. What would be his lot? He does not know whether to laugh or to cry. Sometimes emotions are not very distinct. If it is one form of emotion, you can cry. If it is another, you can laugh. But on seeing the cosmic form, Arjuna is overwhelmed with wonder and also fear, as he is going to say later. Everything is mixed up. The impact is so great that his hair stands on end, and hence he is called Hristaroma. Arjuna, bowing his head with folded hands, says the following in praise of the Lord.
Vismaya vishtaha. So Arjuna, struck by wonder, not because he's seeing new worlds, but because he has a clear perspective towards ordinary things. This is the essence of chapter 11. Not because Arjuna is seeing something new, but because his perspective about what is now purified, at least temporarily. Therefore, his mind filters are no longer reducing objects to mere opinions. This is how we go about the world. We reduce everything around us, we just go opinion, full stop, opinion, full stop. So temporarily, this has been suspended now, this need to opinionate the world. So by my opinionation of the world, I deny myself divinity. Therefore, this is about an extraordinary attitude about an ordinary world. You can rename chapter 11 into that. Having an extraordinary attitude about an ordinary world. And because the impact was so great, it says in the verse, Arjuna started to express emotions at a physical level, because even though his mind, his antakarana, is immersed in the vision, because there's a body-mind connection, because he was so overwhelmed, he had a physical emotion. He had started to, express different emotions. What kind of emotions? In India, they're called navarasas. If you do a play, I'm sure you'll know about this. In other words, Arjuna had 9 emotions simultaneously: anger, horror, humor, peace, revulsion, sorrow, valor, wonder. Imagine having all of that simultaneously. No, we cannot imagine because we only have one. Yeah, so Arjuna had that. Now let's relate to Arjuna. Let's maybe make it more relatable to us human beings. When one person dies, that's not related to you. Is that a big deal? Is that like on the news when one person dies? No. Right now, people have died. We don't see that on the news. What happens when 50 million people die? Big deal, right? It's on the news. It has a different impact. Now, what's the difference? One person died, 50 million. I mean, there's still death. But why do I have so much of a greater impact? Why does it impact me so much more when there's this vaster number? The answer is not really important. The point is, it does have a greater impact. Same thing with Ganga. How many people dip themselves in the Ganga each year? Millions. Right now they're doing it. Or maybe not because it's getting colder. Oh, they are. Well, what about Kumbh Mela? Yeah, hundreds and thousands, or whatever the number is, of sadhus come into the Ganga. That is a divine sight, isn't it? Well, what's the difference? I mean, it's just more people dipping themselves in the river, but there is a greater impact. So that's what Arjuna is now experiencing. Or ants. We'll go back to our ants example. I think I used ants some other time. They have 2D vision, ants. Now imagine telling to an ant, imagine giving an ant 3D vision, because we have 3D vision, X, Y, Z, XS. Ants only have X, Y. What would an ant be like? Wow, this is amazing. Yeah. In the same way, Arjuna is seeing many more dimensions to reality. Again, don't let your mind now go into fly out. Oh, okay, so there are things here that I'm not seeing, like light and animals floating by and everything. No, it's just, that means my understanding is more mature. Thus, I see reality in a more mature way. And then how does having now seen a greater dimension to life, as though watching 100 TV channels at once, all of this input, how do we express this gratitude to the Lord, having given us this opened up this beauty of this wonder? It says here, Pranamya Devam Shirisa. He saluted the Lord with his head bent low. In other words, Arjuna now realizes, after seeing the vastness of the Lord's work, that we are a speck of dust. We are nothing, even though we like to think we're big or something. But in comparison to the total cosmos, we are like a speck of dust in the eternal span of time. How long do we live? 60, 90, 100 years. What is that just compared to 4 billion years, according to the Earth's age? Nothing. What about 13 billion of the universe? Now, what about all of the cycles that come and go? What is that? Nothing. Therefore, all that Arjuna could have done is perform namaskara. Pranamya devam shirisa. He saluted the Lord. Arjuna uvacha pashyami devam stava deva dehe sarvam statha bhuta vishesa sanghan brahmanam isham kamalasanastham rishimscha sarvan uragamscha divyan.
In your body, O Lord, I see all the celestials, as well as hosts of different types of beings. The Lord Brahma residing in Brahmaloka, seated on the lotus, and all the rishis, and celestial snakes.
So 3 points before we speak about what Arjuna says, or before he starts narrating his Vishvarupa experience. Firstly, why hasn't Arjuna recognized divinity before? Because it's true right now. The reason is because he has a subjective colored vision that we just spoke about. And this vision is expressed through raga dvesha, likes and dislikes. So even though we take refuge in our likes and dislikes and we go, here's what I like, here's what I don't like, that is the very principle which is denying me from my fulfillment in life. And then when Krishna temporarily suspended this raga dvesha, that means the ahamkara, that means the one with whom I identify, then he can see what is. Therefore, he's able to appreciate the reality. And now the question is, how is this world wondrous? Because all we're going to see now is the world is wondrous. How is the world wondrous with the current state of the affairs that are going on in the world? Okay, because he's saying, okay, how is this, it's kind of sound like a disconnection. The book's talking about it's a wondrous world. If I look at on earth, there's, crimes happening here. There's divisions going on in countries. No one seems to be agreeing. Everyone has a different idea of Ishvara. There's no respect today, and it's all just, for ourselves. How is it wondrous? So the world is not a wonder if I see it from a standpoint of earth alone. That means if my vision is only stuck in this world, that means all there is for me is this earth, and that's the only reality there is, then you cannot say it's wondrous, because it is so much more than just wondrous here on earth. But if you look at it from a standpoint of the eternal cosmos, then earth and humans become insignificant. Remember, earth is not the only place in the universe. The universe is, as we described, it's got no beginning, no end. So from the standpoint of the cosmos, it is wondrous. Therefore, if I look at this world from the standpoint of the jiva, who is born in this little place called earth, then my experience is going to be likely unpleasant. But if I look at this world from a standpoint of Ishvara, then there is only wonderment. Right? So again, it is the focus that I have. The third point is, why is there a meter change in this verse? You'll notice. The reason is because in those times when something was important, we didn't have a highlighter. We couldn't just put a highlighter. Because we wrote on palm leaves, right? So the only way you could highlight something that is worthy of listening to is you change the meter. Therefore, that's why the meter has changed. Okay. Aham dehe aham devan pashyami. In your body, I see multitudes, pashyami, of living beings. That means all living beings that we get fascinated about, archangels and angels and rakshasas and devas and manushas and animals, all of them I see. That means they're all resolved into you alone. Brahmanam Isham. I also see Brahma in Brahma Loka. Now, what is Brahma Loka? What is Brahma? This is Ishvara from the standpoint of the intelligent creator. So when you look at Ishvara from the standpoint of that one who intelligently creates, that is called Brahma. And there's also symbolism here. Have you ever noticed, of course you have, that Brahma is seated on a lotus and it is born out of Vishnu's navel. You notice that, right? What's the symbolism of this? Does anyone know? Yeah, Vishnu represents the macrocosmic causal body. That means the body from which everything is caused. Or the world that is caused. From what? From Vishnu. This is called Samashti Karana Sharira. That means the macrocosmic causal body. That place that when you go to sleep, that place of bliss, Anandamaya Kosha. Yeah, so you're abiding in Vishnu every single night. when there's nothing, when everyone resolves, including animals, into that place of nothingness, just pure existence. And what is Vishnu existence? The one who sustains existence. And what's the nature of this existence? Pure bliss, ananda, limitless bliss. Now, what is the lotus that Brahma is sitting on? The lotus is the samashti sukshma sharira, the macrocosmic subtle body. And what is this subtle body? It's the total knowledge of everything. For example, you only know knowledge about a few things in your life. I only know some knowledge about a few things in my life. So we all have individual knowledge. All of those individual sukshma shariras, that means minds, resolve into the one total knowledge. And that is called that lotus. That's what the lotus represents. That means sattva guna, all knowledge. Therefore, lotus is also equivalent to sattva guna. Then what does Brahma represent? Brahma represents sukshma, samashti sukshma sharira pratibimba chaitanya. In other words, the macrocosmic subtle body infused with consciousness. Pratibimba means reflected consciousness, just consciousness. In other words, when consciousness, which is Brahman, when it is identified with total knowledge, that is called Brahma. When Brahman, that is consciousness, identified with individual knowledge, that is called Jiva. Then Sarvan Rishin. I see all the sages, most of them being anonymous. That means all of those sages that wrote the Upanishads that you will never meet, that do not have the need to put their names and claim their authorship of the material, I see them too, because they all are also not apart from Bhagavan. Then Uragan, that means serpents. I see serpents, like Vasuki. Vasuki, I spoke in lesson 85. This is a snake around Shiva's neck that you see. Another is Samudra Mantha, the churning of the ocean milk. That was also Vasuki. Also Uragan is the Ananta Shesha. Ananta Shesha is the serpent which the Vishnu is lying on. That's called the Ananta Shesha. So I see both. I see the Vasuki and Ananta Shesha. Now, this brings up a question, by the way. All of these terms that I'm referring to, like Brahma Loka and Vishnu, it sounds like, 14 lokas. Now, the question is Arjuna seeing 14 lokas? Or can we interpret this in a different way? The answer is we can interpret his vision in two different ways. Firstly, the descriptions are poetical in nature. This is the first way you can look at it. So now you don't have to go, okay, so he's looking at 14 lokas, worlds out there. It's just poetry, to creative use of words. How do we know it can be poetical? For example, in verse 26, it is said that Bhishma, Drona, and Karna are entering the mouth of the Lord, who are then being chewed down to pieces, being torn to bits. But in actuality, Arjuna killed Bhishma, Drona, and Karna. Way two that you can interpret this is, even if you say that that Arjuna is seeing higher worlds, then you can say that that is irrelevant to our inquiry, because how is that going to help you in your life now that Arjuna is seeing higher worlds? How does it have any relevance into our life? Therefore, seeing other worlds does not guarantee moksha. For example, Indra, who is the king of Swargaloka, he's still a Mahasamsari. Right? He doesn't know his absolute nature. He's just really intelligent, but he doesn't know his absolute true nature. So seeing higher worlds doesn't necessarily guarantee moksha at all. What is important, though, is that Vishvarupa Darshana, which we're talking about, is not about seeing extraordinary things, by the way. We're not trying to get stuck on what Arjuna is seeing. It is rather recognizing that the ordinary world is Vishvarupa of the Lord. The ordinary world that you and I live in is Vishvarupa of God. That's what chapter 11 is about. So therefore, it's an attitude change towards ordinary objects, not necessarily about what I am seeing or not seeing. Okay, verse 16. Aneka bahu darva vaktra netram pashyami tvam sarvato nantarupam nantam namatyam na punastavadim pashyami vishweshwara vishwarupa.
I see you having countless arms, stomachs, mouths, and eyes. From every quarter you have endless forms. I see that you have no end, no middle, and again no beginning, O Lord of creation, Lord of the cosmic form.
This verse is, again, bringing Vishvarupa Darshanam, as I've been speaking, down to earth, something that you and I can relate to. So again, this is not having a superior vision, this Vishvarupa Darshanam. It is having a superior attitude towards ordinary daily experiences. And that is pointed out in Aneka Bahu Udara Vaktra Netram Pashyami. So I see Vishvarupa of the Lord, who has countless arms, hands, stomach, faces, and eyes. Now, obviously, here's where I bring it down to earth. Obviously, you're not going to have a Lord with eyes and stomachs all over him. Therefore, what is it really saying? All these organs that I mentioned, they are of each individual, that means of you and I, and they are all Vishvarupa. For example, there's no two thumbs that are the same, no two thumbprints are the same, no two eyes that are the same. Okay, and then na antam, na matyam, na punaha tava adim. I do not see a beginning, middle, nor end of Jagat. Scientists today are still trying to, they cannot pinpoint a beginning and the end of the universe. Now, if you cannot pinpoint an end and the beginning of the universe, how are you going to pinpoint the middle? Therefore, I do not see beginning, middle, nor end to this Jagat. Now, question. I'm going to give you a quiz. Can Arjuna now see computers and mobile phones and airplanes and submarines, considering he's being shown everything by the Lord himself? Could he see that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, we need to explain why. Think about it carefully.
I think no,
No, okay, Amina, why not?
because we said it was a change in the attitude, the way we are seeing the existing things in front of us.
Good, good. Okay, let's.
He can only see everything within the limits of his own imagination.
Okay, and okay, let's extend this inquiry. Suppose that Ishvara now has, this ability to show, everything, past, present, and future. Suppose Arjuna was now seeing the future. Could he see mobile phones of today and submarines and airplanes?
Only in his imagination.
No.
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 Why not?
No, because the potential for those things hasn't been folded yet.
Excellent. Yeah. You see? Excellent answer, right? Remember what we said, there's no such thing as fate, as set future. It is up to our needs. It is according to our thinking that we design instruments. If we have no need for a submarine, that means if everything was peaceful between two nations, then we would have never designed submarines. So Arjuna, yes?
Andre, even that designing, that knowledge comes from Brahman and, Lord. So
Yeah.
even though the potential wasn't there, but still ultimately the knowledge comes from him, or power and knowledge.
Yeah. In other words, we use the knowledge to create our own, to mold our own creation. But that knowledge to actually move, hands and physics and all, that's already there. But then we think, okay, according to what is available for me, how can I create something that can put a tube in the sky so it can interact with the aerodynamic forces of the air? Yeah, so we depend on the physics of the air, of gravity, but we still have to think, to create something to put it up there. Yeah, but that hasn't been manifested yet during Arjuna's time. Therefore, he cannot see mobile phones, computers, and submarines and ships and so on, because the potential, as Thomas said, hasn't yet been manifested.
Andre, does it really matter what Arjuna was actually seeing, in the sense that what maybe isn't the whole point of the description being that he can see the Lord everywhere, and it doesn't really matter what exact object he's saying?
Yeah, nice. So he doesn't matter what he's seeing. And also someone else said, according to his imagination, Martin said this, what Arjuna is seeing is only things that are directly known or indirectly known to him. But it doesn't matter whether it's imagination or not, all he's seeing is the Lord, either way. Kritika, have I answered your question? Yeah. So again, you see, we're not trying to get caught up on the objects. As Meena said, we're only interested in attitude trained from a standpoint of our lives right here, right now. Verse 17. Kiritinam gadinam chakrinam cha tejorashim sarvato diptimantam pashyami tvam durnirikshyam samantad diptanalarkadyutim aprameyam.
I see you as one who has a crown, a mace, and a disc, as a mass of brilliance with light on all sides, and therefore difficult to see from every angle, as one who is having the brilliance of a conflagration and the blazing sun, and as one who is not knowable as a limited object.
Kiritinam gadinam chakrinam cha pashyami. So I see you, Lord, traditionally depicted in the form which we commonly worship. That means the one with 4 arms, like Ganesha. You notice Ganesha 4 arms, Vishnu 4 arms, Krishna 4 arms. Symbolism. What's the symbolism of 4 arms? So in regards to Krishna, because speaking about Krishna, the 2 arms, the first 2 arms are for weapons. For example, in one hand, okay, so what does weapon mean? I said 2 arms are for weapons. What about these weapons? Weapons is a symbol for, I am going to protect you. If anything comes coming your way to harm you, I will protect you. So that's what the Lord is. The one with 2 arms who protects you from whatever harm comes. I will use my weapons to protect you. Only if you live in harmony with my laws and orders. That means with dharmic principles of life. For example, suppose that you're going against the tide of the river. And, all of these waves are like crashing, there's strong waves and you're going against the tide. Is Lord going to stop or change the flow of the entire ocean just to suit you? No. In other words, if you're swimming against the tide of my dharmic principles, I cannot help you. That means you need to align yourself in the right direction, and only then I can protect you. Only then you can go along the tide and have a smooth journey in life. So in one arm, what is Krishna holding? A mace. What does this imply? A mace, a strong, powerful one. What does a mace do? What do you do with a mace? You incur immediate, right? It's immediate. Therefore, immediate cause. That weapon, which is immediate cause, which has an immediate cause. And what is he holding in the other hand? A chakra. A chakra travels far, does it not? Therefore, that takes time. Unseen cause. A cause that is on its way. So if I shoot an arrow and I release it, and it's about to hit a deer, that's as though a chakra. That means it's going to have a cause, but not immediate. It's going to have a cause only when it reaches. The other two arms is one of his arms is he's offering refuge. That means in my hand alone is your refuge from this rebirth. And the other hand, if you see a Krishna, you can see a Google image. It is as though it's pointing down to his feet. What is this saying? Pointing down to his feet. Pointing down to my feet. What does the feet represent?
The feet represent Brahman.
Yeah. Okay.
Connection to the earth.
Connection to the universal laws and orders. In other words, if you recognize me, if you recognize and surrender to the one cause of the universe, then I will take care of you. If you resist this one cause and live according to your fancies, likes and dislikes, I can't help you, because I'm not going to change the tide of the entire ocean just to suit you. Just because you have a like to swim against the tide, I can't help, because then the whole universe is going to fall apart if I change one law just to suit one person. For example, suppose I said this example before, your favorite vase is falling that your grandmother gave you, and it has been carried on for generations, and it's a special vase. And while it's falling, you quickly go to your puja room and you do like a little mantra, and you do like a please stop gravity, don't let this fall. Is Ishvara going to suspend gravity just so he can prevent that vase from falling? It cannot, because if it did so, then whoever happens to be in the plane will suddenly find themselves in space. And the entire world will just suddenly float up just because you made a little prayer in your room so you can prevent your grandmother's vase from falling. Therefore, Ishvara cannot violate its own laws just to appease my own likes and dislikes. So that means the only choice I have is to swim with the current, and that's called dharma. Okay, durni rikshyam. So your effulgence is blinding everywhere I look. Have you ever been on a high peak mountain with snow all around you on a bright day and the sun is shining? Can you look? High mountain, snow, sun shining, no way. The effulgence is so bright, wherever I look, I cannot see. That is the Lord. Your effulgence is blinding everywhere. And this is another reason, by the way, why India, there is, the 5 element temples, they're placed in different places. What's the symbolism behind this? Again, Lord is everywhere.
All around.
Yeah, Lord is all around. Okay. In the same way, God's effulgence is everywhere, in all directions. Therefore, the 5 element temples are in all directions. Aprameyam. One who is limitless, thus cannot be objectified by the limited antahkarana. For example, suppose I have a rose, let's see, in my garden, and I show you a rose. You can objectify that, right? You're going to say rose. So this means I can objectify rose knowledge. That means the entire mind, when I show you a rose, becomes the rose. That's what a mind is. Mind is just that component which becomes whatever thought happens to be, whatever thought knowledge happens to be arising in the mind. So if I show you the rose, that's what your mind becomes, rose knowledge. But it doesn't become something that is non-rose knowledge, does it? If I show you a rose, you're only seeing the rose. You're not seeing the elephant, at least until I show you the elephant. In other words, the mind can only be seeing one thing at a time. It can never see limitless objects. That's what it means to say, I cannot objectify limitlessness. Understand this point? I can objectify one single object, like a rose, like a red rose, but are you seeing the blue rose while you're seeing the red rose? No. When I show you a red rose, you're not seeing the blue rose. In other words, in order to see the red rose, I must not see the blue rose. To see the blue rose, I must take away the red rose, and only then I can see the blue rose. Which means that the mind can only objectify one object at a time, but never more than one. let alone infinite objects, that is limitlessness, aprameyam. Therefore, aprameyam cannot be objectified owing to the limitations of the antahkarana, of your and my antahkarana, of the mind. Why? Because limitlessness has no beginning and end. It has no boundaries. It does not begin here and stop here like a rose. Like a rose begins here and stops here. But limitlessness has no boundaries. Therefore, I cannot objectify it. So what does this mean, if you think about it? Limitlessness cannot be objectified. It means that it is indirectly pointing to consciousness. It is referring to consciousness. How do you know that? Okay, what is the only principle which you cannot objectify? The only principle which you cannot objectify?
Consciousness.
Consciousness. Okay, so you cannot objectify. Why can you not objectify consciousness?
Because you are that.
Yeah, because to objectify consciousness means I've turned it into a rose, into an object, and I've placed it inside the mind. That means I've now limited limitlessness into a single thought modification inside the antahkarana. Therefore, I have objectified it. What else can you not objectify? It's funny, I asked, the only principle that you can objectify is consciousness, and now I'm saying, what else can you not objectify? We just spoke, aprameyam, limitlessness. Therefore, limitlessness is consciousness. Because I cannot objectify consciousness, I also cannot objectify limitlessness. Consciousness can't be objectified. Limitlessness cannot be objectified. Therefore, consciousness and limitlessness are not two. Therefore, Sat Chit Ananda. What is the nature of Chit? Limitlessness. Consciousness and limitlessness are not two. Yes, Robert?
Isn't limitlessness an attribute of consciousness?
No, no. The nature of consciousness is limitlessness. And what is limitlessness? Consciousness. So you
And
can
consciousness
see
can't have attributes.
that. Sorry, Martin?
Yeah, consciousness can't have any attributes to be conscious.
Based on this knowledge, Arjuna is now going to make an inference in verse 18, and then we will close. Tvam aksharam paramam veditavyam, tvam asya vishwasya param nidhanam, tvam avyaya shaswata dharma gopta, sanatanas tvam purusho matome.
It is my appreciation that you are imperishable, the one who has to be known. You are the ultimate basis, cause of this world. You are not subject to change. You are the protector of the perennially eternal laws. You are eternal and you are the complete being.
Tvam aksharam paramam veditavyam. O Lord, you are the eternal one from the standpoint of saguna and nirguna. Okay, what is saguna? Saguna means with the three gunas, that means manifestation. Now, you are eternal from the standpoint of saguna, which means that creation always exists. It is eternal itself. Creation has two states, manifest and unmanifest. So just because there is no creation does not mean it's not eternal. It's just in unmanifest mode. Also, the Puranas beautifully say that there's a metaphor in the Puranas. During pralayam, that means the macro samashti dissolution, Krishna is floating on a leaf. You may or may not have heard this. Now, what's the symbolism of this? It means that in Maya, creation is withheld. And this is called Yoga Nidra of the Lord. In Maya, the potential for creation is in unmanifest. It is withheld, withdrawn. Just like your entire life is withdrawn during your own sleep. And then when you wake up, that entire life projects itself. That means it continues where it left off. In the same way, the samashti, the entire universe, withdraws itself into Maya, It's called Yoga Nidra of Parameshwaraha. And then another cycle begins, and that entire world of that is Vishnu, the total causal body, projects the world of form. And then the new cycle begins. And also, it is the you are also the eternal Nirguna. Nirguna means Brahman. And Nirguna also means the final reality, which was never born. And because it was never born, thus it has no end. And because it was not born, it doesn't have attributes, because whatever is born comes with time, space, bound attributes. But because Brahman was never born, it thus has no attributes of its own. And don't say Maya is an attribute of Brahman. Maya is a power in Brahman. And Maya and Brahman are not apart. The limitless nature of Brahman is Maya. So what Arjuna is saying is, it is clear to me now, Lord, that you have shown me this, that Ishvara is the Jagat Karanam, the cause of the universe. And for that reason, Lord alone, because he is the cause of this entire universe, he alone is to be properly understood by every human being. All other knowledge is incidental. Knowledge of how to cook, knowledge of how to drive a car, knowledge of running a business, knowledge of this and that, that is all coming naturally as you maneuver yourself through life. But the only knowledge worthy of pursuing is the proper understanding of Ishvara. That means nimitta and upadana karanam, the cause of the universe. In other words, knowledge of satyam, we spoke already, I'm sure you know what that means, alone is worthy of living for. Why is it alone worthy of living for? Because all mithya objects that I see around me all resolve, are all changing into the one, and they all resolve into the one ultimate cause, which is Ishvara, being both nimitta and upadana karanam of all objects and laws and orders that I witness. For example, ornaments, as attractive as they are, like your ring and your earring, that you go, ooh, nice earring, ooh, so nice. That resolves into what? The gold. Now, isn't it funny? When someone gives you a ring, do you ever go, oh, wow, what interesting gold? Do you ever do that? Even though the entire ring depends on the gold, you don't mention the main substance, the main cause of that ring. We go straight into the ring, go, oh, nice ring. Next time someone gives you something, try and say the substance of that and see what the kind of response they get you. Buy them a ring or something, or say, hey, can you buy me a ring? And then you go, oh, nice gold, or nice silverware, or nice hydrogen and molecules. Not romantic. Okay, 5 more minutes. Shashwata Dharma Gopta. You uphold the eternal universal ethical values called Dharma. Because you are the cause of this universe, whatever arises out of you has to abide by Dharma. If it doesn't, it suffers. Not immediately, because I have both my chakra and my mace. Therefore, there's sometimes unseen causes, and there's sometimes I will throw my mace, my immediate weapon, onto you. I will whack you on the head. Stop it. Come back to this flow of life. That's why no one can get out of Dharma. That's why there's no such thing as doing something and then thinking I can get away with it. Because the person that's doing it also is of the one cause. And then Purushaha. Purushaha is a common word in the scriptures. Here it just means, as it means in most places, the one being in whom everything exists. Ishvara. Nimitta upadana karanam. So what Arjuna is saying, finally, is knowing your vastness, now knowing your vastness through first-hand experience, now the Shastra makes more sense than ever. Because I've witnessed firsthand all of the things that the Shastras have been talking about. You indeed, Lord, are the ultimate basis of everything that I hope for, that I aspire to, that I wish, and that I make my life out of. My entire life is centered on you, Lord. Why? Because everything I desire, wish, like, hope for, aspire to, ultimately resolves into you. However, this is indirect knowledge that Arjuna is saying. It sounds very inspirational, doesn't it? But this is still inferential for Arjuna. How do we know? Because soon enough, as you will see next week or so, Arjuna is going to get frightened about what he sees. It's easy to talk, isn't it? But when Krishna shows him some more interesting, vibhutis, some more glories, then Arjuna is going to say, oh, please come back to your original form. Why does Arjuna say this? Because he saw himself as a separate witness to the witnessed. He saw himself as two different, as apart from the whole. Therefore, he got scared about what was being seen, as though what was being seen is going to hurt the witness, the one who's looking. If he did understand the full vision, then we would not have chapter 12. And he would have also said it in a different way. He would have said, oh Lord, what I am seeing now, I understand that the reality of me and Ishvara is not two. Everything is me. But Arjuna does not say that. Therefore, there is space for teaching. And thus, the teaching will continue next week. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.